Where we are today is called the Asaase Lodge. It was, over 60 years ago, the official retreat of Ghana's first president, Kwame Nkrumah. So being here today is a continuation of the dream of those men and women who fought for Africa's independence from colonialization and who believed that the best route for Africa was to unite.
Not about you, in spite of you, Africa will unite. Let this word sink in your head. Divide and rule is there. All Africa, Ethiopia, Mali, Cameroon, Kenya, Tunisia, Haiti, Namibia now.
Welcome. Well, this year's forum is made possible by the Africa Prosperity Network in collaboration with the Africa America Institute and our various partners, the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement (AFTA), and the Pan-African Payment Settlement Systems (PAPS), and of course, our kind sponsors, and we'll get to go through them. Well, this year's theme, mobilizing global African investment for Africa's infrastructural needs, gets to highlight the crucial role of global partnerships in addressing Africa's growing infrastructural demands. And as the continent continues to expand, investment in transportation, energy, digital technology, and healthcare are vital to its sustainable development.
So today we gather to explore how global Africa communities can drive these investments and unlock Africa's vast potential. For purposes of housekeeping, please take note that if you step out of this building from the direction you entered, you can have assistance if you want to know where the washrooms are and what have you. There is assistance there for you. My name is Wilberforce Asare. I work with Asaase Radio in Ghana.
I am Emefa Apau. I also work with Joy News, Joy FM, myjoyonline.com, also in Ghana.
And together we are your hosts for this event. We anticipate that it's going to be a successful event.
I must also say that we are live on Africa Prosperity Network's Facebook and YouTube channels, also live on Asaase Radio, all the social media platforms around the world. You're welcome once again. And we are scheduled to have the founder and executive chairman of the Africa Prosperity Network, Mr. Asaase Dako, to give us a welcome address, but due to circumstances beyond his control, I'd like to welcome tonight, it's my pleasure, to welcome a board member of the APN and a man many of us in the media look up to. Please, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Kweku Sechiado.
Thank you very much, MFI and Wilberforce. Honorable Ministers, Mr. Kofi Apente, I'm not sure whether he's here, or his representative, President of the African American Institute, Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished business leaders, partners, fellow Africans, ladies and gentlemen. It's my distinguished honor to welcome you to the Global Africa Forum 2024 on behalf of the Executive Chairman, Asaase Dako, who's unable to be here today. This event is convened by the Africa Prosperity Network, APN, of which I'm a director, and its main partner, the African American Institute, AAI, with support from the African Continental Free Trade Area Secretariat and the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPS. Thank you very much for your support. Thanks also to JL Properties, Golden Coast Developers, Buena Vista Homes, Delta Airlines, and Sky Team. I must extend our special gratitude to President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo for his unwavering and profound commitment and support towards the aims and objectives of APN and the Global Africa Forum. The Africa Prosperity Network is a non-profit organization headquartered in Accra, Ghana. Its mission is to be the leading private sector network driving Africa's economic transformation and prosperity, championing the cause of intra-African trade to promote Africa's development through progressive dependence on trade as against aid, in alignment with the African Union's Agenda 2063. APN is the vehicle that runs the Africa Prosperity Dialogues, an annual 3-day conference in Accra in January. The dialogues bring together business leaders, regulators, policymakers to take practical initiatives to drive trade and investment towards the building of a prosperous Africa, the Africa we want. And so I hereby invite you all, ladies and gentlemen, to the APD 2025, which will take place from 30th January to 1st February 2025. APD 2025 will focus on infrastructure for Africa's development. The theme is mobilizing global African investments for Africa's infrastructure needs. Last year, we launched the Global Africa Network to connect millions of global Africans and invited them to turn their attention and investments towards the original home, Africa. Many distinguished personalities responded to our call and attended the event last year. They included Mr. Albert Muchanga, Commissioner for Trade and Industry of the African Union Commission, Mr. Wamkele Mene, Secretary General of the AFCFTA, who is unable to be here this time but is ably represented by Nanayao Dapa, Professor Benedict Okeorama, President and Chair of Afri-Exim Bank, and Ms. Ahuna Eziakonwa, Africa Director for UNDP. To you, we owe many, many thanks. Africa has a vast infrastructure gap, but we see this gap as a vast opportunity, an investment opportunity, an opportunity for trade in machinery and technology, and an opportunity to create jobs right from groundbreaking and when the first shovel of sand is dug and scooped. And so we mustn't bemoan the infrastructure gap. Rather, we must fix it. Mind the gap by investing to close it. That's our call to you today. That's APN's invitation to you. Africa is home to 18% of the world's population, but it accounts for less than 6% of global energy use. The energy infrastructure gap seems to be the most in need of financing in Africa. And this gap says a lot, because without energy, we cannot industrialize. The Grand Inga Dam, when built in the Congo, has the potential to light up the entire continent, plus change to sell to the Middle East and parts of Europe. The World Bank, the European Investment Bank, and the African Development Bank have provided funding for feasibility studies and environmental impact studies as well to hopefully see through. Let's do it. We need to invest in roads and bridges. We must build railroads and establish aviation and maritime links to connect our countries and move cargo and people. And the model for financing must shift from central government to the private sector. In 2023, sub-Saharan Africa witnessed an impressive 54 billion in remittance flows. Remittances outperformed FDIs by nearly 1.5 times. Ghana's remittances reached an impressive $4.6 billion US dollars, surpassed only by neighboring Nigeria with $19.5 billion US dollars. Of course, our jollof outperformed theirs. The Nigerian diaspora should invest in Niger jollof infrastructure. We see an opportunity in establishing direct air links between Africa and the Caribbean. It's important for unlocking new opportunities in trade, tourism, and cultural exchange. We need to recreate that transatlantic bridge. Even for our own catharsis. For our collective, to cleanse our collective trauma. We understand that Air Peace have begun exploratory flights from Nigeria to Jamaica and Antigua. Congratulations to them for leading the way. Back in the 90s, Ghana Airways used to fly to Bridgetown, Barbados from London. We need strategic partnerships such as code-sharing agreements. These should be explored. And so we say to our global Africa, seize the opportunity that the African Continental Free Trade Area offers, and APN as well presents, and back them with your greenbacks. So see you all in Accra in January 2025 for our Africa Prosperity Dialogues. And remember to mind the gap by investing to close it. Thank you.
On that jollof note, thank you very much, Mr. Kweku Sejiano, member of the board for Africa Prosperity Network. For those of you who are joining us via... My microphone is off. Hello? Good. So for those of you who are joining us via social media and also via YouTube and on various portals, we want to thank you sincerely for choosing to be part of the Global Africa Forum. Let me quickly acknowledge persons who have been supporting and organizations who have supported this endeavor. First is the Golden Coast Developers. Thank you very much for your sponsorship and partnership. DevTraco Group, thank you very much. Buena Vista Homes, JL Properties, and Delta, we thank you also. Other institutions that have supported this effort: United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, UNDP, United Nations Ghana, Afri-Exim Bank, Badea, Africa Business Council, Africa Development Bank, Soft Power Africa, Africa Soft Power, I should say, Oxford Business Group, the Africa America Institute, Africa Legal Associates, 3i Africa Summit, and the Chartered Institute of Realtors. We also have the Ghana Investment Promotion Center and also the Chamber of Real Estate. Thank you all for your partnership. The man I'm just about to introduce to address us is one of 4 persons who have been selected to address this gathering. He is initially, there was something that was written about him that got corrected. And so I want to make sure that I do the right thing. All right, so I'm just about to introduce a very known face globally. He's here in our midst, and he brings us his thoughts as far as this program is concerned. He is the co-founder of Full Circle Africa. He is a Ghanaian, and he's also a German. So he's part of the 2 Gs. Please, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Boris Kujo.
2 Gs, okay. Good day, everyone. Esteemed guests, dignitaries, excellencies, I'm going to thank Gabi and the Africa Prosperity Network, as well as the African American Institute. I'm honored to be here today, stand here before you at the Africa Global Forum, at a very pivotal point in this time of uncertainty and opportunity. Uncertainty because business as usual threatens to be business as usual, with global paradigms about Africa continuing to perpetuate old stereotypes and thereby supporting Africa's biggest challenge, which is perception. Opportunity because part of our collective consciousness as Africans is our ability to band together in order to change old narratives and tell a different story. We are all Africans, whether you consider the first humans who lived in East Africa 2.8 million years ago, or the over 1.6 billion people of African descent currently populating the globe. The African diaspora is the 3rd largest population after China and India, and its spending power equals almost $2 trillion. Now that's our story. With the youngest average age in the world at 19 years old, Africa has the fastest growing workforce, soon to represent 40% of the world's youth ready to be educated and trained. Streamlining those skills and focusing them towards creating ecosystems and building sustainable industries will allow millions of Africans to drive socioeconomic development across the continent. That's our story. These numbers represent our collective leverage across sectors and the promise of possibility and potential. But this potential will remain unreachable unless we operate outside of our respective silos and create synergies and partnerships with one another. Together, let's continue to strengthen the bridge between the diaspora and the continent and maximize our impact on our economies, our culture, and societies as a whole. That's our story. When my brother and I, who's in the room, where is he? There he is. When my brother and I founded Full Circle Africa, we realized that the African diaspora has a unique perspective on our shared history, which creates a common ground that is the fertile soil on which business grows. Our people-to-people connections are the foundation of sustainable enterprise, and we must use our vast network, our sense of entrepreneurship, and collective consumer spending power as a catalyst to create partnerships and increase capital for African businesses. That's our story. So let's continue to welcome our brothers and sisters in the diaspora to travel to the continent, to visit, to do business, because together we can rid ourselves from the eight-based shackles of neocolonialisms and control our collective destiny by optimizing financial infrastructure and investing in economic development. Let's embrace our cultural diversity and celebrate our collective heritage by tapping into our ancestral superpowers. That's African excellence. That's our identity. That's our story. Together we have everything we need. Natural resources, economic resources, human resources. We must build and control fully integrated value chains, focus on African ownership and on exporting goods and services, but no longer African talent or IP. Let's remember that the world has always looked to us for inspiration and value creation, misappropriating and exploiting our science, art, music, fashion, and entire cultures. But that's no longer our story. As Africans, we have the power to change our own narrative, to face Africa's branding challenge and shine a light on technology innovation, digital expansion, and the growth of our industries. As I look towards the future, I can see a tomorrow where all Africans are united in our need to forge our own path towards possibility, our desire to work together to grow the continent, and our collective purpose to take Africa from potential to prosperity. This is our story. Thank you.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, let's do better for Boris. I don't know if you are starstruck as I am, but if you are, maybe you do it better for him. Maybe once again, ladies and gentlemen, let's just do it for Mr. Boris Kudo. Thank you so much for being a part of this particular forum. It's now the turn to introduce a man that needs no introduction. He's the CEO of Shelter Afrique. Tieno Habib Han will give us a brief message as well. Please, let's welcome him.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And it's very difficult to follow my brother Boris, who's an actor and well-known driver of change across the continent. But it's a pleasure to be here to share this podium. Really, it's an honor, and we are very grateful to be part of the APN network initiative, the Global Africa Forum here on the sides of the UN GA. Really to say that we are a development bank based in Nairobi, and we focus on urban development and affordable housing across the continent. And we are really looking at the opportunity for transformation, right, for our continent to play its role in the global financial architecture. So as a development bank, this is where we come in. As you all know, housing and urban infrastructure are critical to Africa's development agenda, playing a pivotal role in improving living standards, driving economic growth, and fostering social inclusion, with Africa's urban population projected to exceed 50% by 2050. The continent faces an escalating housing crisis, which is really a ticking bomb on all of us, currently experiencing a deficit of over 53 million housing needed across the continent. And this gap alone requires more than $1.3 trillion, right? So we're talking about more than $1,000 billion, right? So that's $1.3 trillion. And we need to mobilize those resources. And this is where we come in as Shelter Africa Development Bank and our other sister DFIs across the continent. We have set up an alliance of African multilateral financial institutions, AMFI, which is composed of 7 of our institutions, including Afrexim Bank, DDB, and others across the continent. So addressing this challenge requires increased investment in affordable housing to accommodate rapid urbanization and population growth. PPPs and innovative financing mechanisms such as blended finance and green bonds can unlock global and African investments needed to close the infrastructure gap. By mobilizing private capital and expertise, governments and institutions can fast-track large-scale, sustainable housing developments and urban development investments. Moreover, aligning housing projects with sustainable policies and practices and local capacity building efforts ensures long-term social, economic, and environmental benefits. Fostering partnerships that advance Africa's housing and urban infrastructure will be key. And this is where Shelter Africa Development Banks is committed to mobilizing the resources to achieve this goal. So what is more, we have the mandate to do so. First, through our mission and vision over 40 years of existence, and also recently reaffirmed by the African Union 2 weeks ago at the inaugural African Union Urban Forum, where we are entrusted as the leading anchor resource mobilization DFI to drive the effort of resource mobilization for the continent for urban and housing infrastructure. So this is just to say that the amount of work and the task is really enormous, and we all need to work together across the board to make sure that this is achieved. I see some of our partners, institutions in the room. I see Badea in the room. We work very closely with Badea. Sister Fatima is here, and many other institutions. And the whole idea for us is to come together in partnership to make sure that we can move the needle, because the needs are huge, right? I mean, we've been talking about $150 billion infrastructure investment needed every year in Africa, right? So this is a major challenge on all of us. So this is why we're here, and we're looking forward to partner with everybody to move this forward. So we appreciate what APN is doing to bring us together, and we're looking forward to be in Accra in January as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. It's now time to hear from the Tetraco Energy team. And thankfully, we have the chief executive himself here with us, Olakunle Olalekun Williams. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome him, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Unfortunately, I'm not Ola. I'm Stanley Amatefio. And my bosses are here, so I'm sure they're pretty surprised to see me walk up here when they mentioned Ola's name. But Ola couldn't make it, so I'll be giving his remarks on his behalf. Good afternoon, Excellencies, industry captains, government representatives, colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure and honor for me to address this assembly today as we discuss issues bordering mobilizing global investments for Africa's infrastructure needs. This gathering provides an important platform for all of us to join the dialogue and proffer a pragmatic approach to accelerate infrastructure development in Africa, the beautiful continent I come from. I actually do come from the continent this time, so this is exciting. Let me take a moment to congratulate the Africa Prosperity Network, APN, and the Africa America Institute, AAI, for showing yet again the power of collaboration between institutions in addressing key issues such as infrastructure deficits in our society. To put some background, Africa has a population of over 1.5 billion people as of today, and it's expected to hit an unprecedented 2.4 billion by 2050, and eventually to a staggering 4.2 billion. That is about 30% of the global population by the year 2100. The continent will nearly become the most populated on Earth, trailing only Asia's 4.8 billion. And yet today, more than 600 million people across the continent still lack access to electricity. In sub-Saharan Africa, 77% of the population faces energy poverty, an alarming deficit that limits our economic potential, stifles development, and hampers our collective ability to address basic human needs such as healthcare, education, and clean water. There's no better time to discuss and reflect on Africa's energy sector and its pivotal role in closing the continent's infrastructure gap. Mobilizing global investment is key to addressing this and unlocking Africa's energy future. Africa's energy demand is projected to grow at twice the global average, and meeting this growing demand will require sustained and transformative investment. To put this into perspective, the International Energy Agency, IEA, estimates that Africa needs over $190 billion in investment annually between now and 2030 to achieve universal access to energy and to build infrastructure that will enable sustainable growth. This number is expected to increase to over $240 billion annually to meet up with the growing demand. These numbers highlight the scale of the challenge, but they also offer a compelling business case. Africa's energy markets present a $2.6 trillion opportunity by 2040. The path forward requires a collective strategic effort to unlock this potential and meet Africa's energy demands. To all decision makers, enthusiasts present here today, I would now like to focus on a potential way forward: collaboration. Solving Africa's energy infrastructure problem requires a three-pronged collaborative approach. The first pillar is funding and financing. The scale of investment needed means that no single entity, government or private, can do this alone. We need collaborative financial mechanisms that mobilize capital from a variety of sources: public, private, and multilateral. The creation of blended finance models, public-private partnerships, and innovative financial instruments like green bonds are all key to addressing Africa's energy deficit. For example, Tetracol Energy Group has been at the forefront of developing energy projects across the continent. Access to the required funding and financing will go a long way in ensuring we can do much more across the continent where infrastructure development is concerned. Our work in natural gas infrastructure and independent power projects, IPPs, has demonstrated that it is possible to attract and deploy international capital in ways that not only deliver high demands, but also provide essential services to millions of people. The second pillar is technology. Africa is rich in energy resources, from solar, wind, and hydropower to abundant natural gas and geothermal reserves. But tapping into this potential requires significant technological innovation. We must leverage technology to enhance energy efficiency, reduce emissions, and ensure that Africa benefits from a diverse energy mix. While renewables will undoubtedly play a major role in Africa's future, we must acknowledge that for a developing continent, relying on renewables alone cannot meet our needs in the short to medium term. Natural gas, for instance, will serve as a critical transition and stabilizing fuel, providing the baseload power required for industrialization. Tetracol Energy Group is proud to contribute to this narrative. We manage over 85 million standard cubic feet per day of natural gas supply across Nigeria, energizing over 300 megawatts of power generation. In Ghana, we secured the country's first virtual pipeline license, making a tangible impact on energy access. Our compressed natural gas and liquefied natural gas projects that we set up in Nigeria, Ghana, and Equatorial Guinea are contributing to the reduction of emissions while providing a reliable energy source. By working with cutting-edge technologies, we aim to and can unlock the potential of all energy sources and bridge the gap between Africa's energy needs and its current supply. The third and final pillar is market collaboration. Open, transparent, and competitive energy markets are critical for unlocking Africa's full energy potential. Governments, private sector players, and international partners must work together to create markets that encourage investment, allow for competition, and foster innovation. Fair trade policies, deregulation, and incentives for cross-border energy trade will help drive down costs and increase access. Tetracore is committed to facilitating collaboration among market players and advocating for transparent and efficient energy markets. Asaase, with integrated energy solutions, has been made possible through partnerships with both government and private sector leaders. With the African Continental Free Trade Area, agreements in place, we have the framework to integrate our economies and drive intra-Africa trade. The $15 billion pledge by the United States and European Union to Africa's renewable energy transition is a testament to the potential impact. If well coordinated, these investments could electrify more than 600 million Africans who currently lack access to reliable electricity. Cross-border energy systems like the West African Power Pool will also be essential for unlocking growth and driving industrialization across multiple sectors. The West African Power Pool, WAP, has received over $300 million in funding from the World Bank to develop a 330 kV transmission line that will connect Nigeria, Benin, Togo, and Ghana. The project is expected to improve power transmission and reduce energy losses in the region. At Tetracore, we are deeply committed to solving Africa's energy challenges. Our diverse portfolio of energy projects span natural gas, renewable energy, and power generation infrastructure. We are not only focused on building capacity, but also in ensuring that our projects contribute to the development of a sustainable, inclusive energy market in Africa. Whether it is our work in gas-to-power projects or the pursuit of decentralized renewable solutions, Tetracore is demonstrating leadership in bringing innovative energy solutions to the continent. We are actively engaged in partnerships and collaborations that will help mobilize the funding, technology, and markets frameworks required to transform Africa's energy landscape. In conclusion, Africa's energy sector is the engine that will drive our shared prosperity. Solving Africa's infrastructure challenges requires bold investments, collaborative partnerships, and efficient governance. By mobilizing global investments and fostering regional trade, we close the infrastructure gap, enhance energy security, and make Africa not only energy independent, but also a global industrial powerhouse. And it's about time we all roll up our sleeves and get to work. And may our road be rough, but may Africa be the winner. Thank you.
He is a private legal practitioner. He works with Africa Legal Associates, and it's interesting to see that he has taken over a new role in energy. All right, so the next guest I'm supposed to introduce to bring us an address works with a company that seeks to provide excellent healthcare infrastructure as a turnkey solution for both government and private clients. This company also delivers solutions that are technologically driven from design, financing, project management, and construction, with the aim of offering their clients seamless turnkey approach. What I see with this company is there's something about turnkey. So let's hope that the CEO of the Hospital Infrastructure Groups, the Hospital Infrastructure Group brings us the turnkey. Please make welcome Kwabena Nyako.
Thank you. Good afternoon, distinguished, Your Excellencies, distinguished business leaders, ladies and gentlemen. It's my distinct pleasure to firstly thank the Africa Prosperity Network and the African American Institute for inviting me to give remarks at this forum on the theme of mobilizing global African investments for Africa's infrastructure needs. Africa is often spoken of in terms of its potential. But as Abraham Lincoln put it, and I quote, "The best way to predict your future is to create it," unquote. And Africa must create its own future. By 2050, Africa's population is expected to hit 2.4 billion. And this calls for substantial investments in infrastructure development. Your Excellencies, African governments alone cannot bear the annual funding requirements of $150 for infrastructure. So there's a need to switch from traditional funding sources to more strategic and dynamic project structuring mechanisms. And here I'll share some experiences from Ghana and what has been done in the last decade. So for example, a decade ago, Ghana set up the Ghana Infrastructure and Investment Fund, GIF, which is a sovereign wealth fund capitalized with 325 million in anchor equity to act as a catalyst to leverage private sector funds into infrastructure assets in Ghana. Significantly, for every dollar invested, GIF has attracted $10 in private sector investment into Ghana without the anchor of any sovereign guarantees. At this stage, permit me to share two examples of project structuring and accelerated infrastructure delivery. At the height of COVID-19, the pandemic, the government of Ghana took the challenging decision to build 101 district hospitals, 7 regional hospitals, 3 psychiatric hospitals at an estimated cost of $1.8 billion, and aimed at bridging the healthcare infrastructure gap in the country. This project is known as Agenda 111, and my company was at the forefront of championing this project. Glad to say that government in this approach departed from traditional approaches to delivering a project of this scale. So government through GIF provided funding to execute the initial phase of a project, and GIF was tasked to oversee the payment process, ensure integrity, and eliminate the red tapeism. This enabled construction in a record time. And as I speak, the first batch of hospitals will be commissioned by the end of 2024. Government has created equity and can leverage on it to raise additional funding for the project moving forward. To achieve this, I'm proposing a charter of hospitals where private investors can partner with government in a PPP to ensure speedy completion and operationalization of the hospitals in the short to medium term. The second example I like to cite is the 20-kilometer Accra-Tema motorway and N1 extension project. This is a road project that seeks to enhance a key portion of the West African Highway
And here again, government requested the Ghana Infrastructure and Investment Fund to develop a ring-fence SPV, through which funds will be channeled exclusively for the accelerated delivery of the project. The GIF SPV was granted a concession, and the project will be executed in 3 phases at a cost of $600 million. The government will provide $380 million as GOG equity for EPC works. And on completion of the first phase, government acting through the SPV will leverage its equity to raise additional funding for phases 2 and 3 under PPP arrangements. This example, or these examples show that the value of leveraging resources and expertise to drive localized infrastructure projects. And here I'd just like to emphasize on the importance of these kinds of PPP arrangements where government in particular puts in equity in developing the projects and then can leverage on that to raise additional funding. Distinguished guests, in conclusion, African governments should adequately capitalize their sovereign wealth funds and other DFIs to focus on infrastructure development. African governments should leverage their resources and expertise through strategic financing alternatives to provide resilient and sustainable infrastructure projects. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your audience.
Hello everyone, I'm Neil Oku, the CEO of Golden Coast Developers, and we're glad to be a part of this year's Global Africa Forum. We believe the cornerstone of building Africa is to ensure that the investment base and the practical ideas turn into tangible projects. We're calling on all global Africans to come home, invest, and let's harness the opportunity to develop the content and the goals that we have. Our project, Heritage 100, is the first fully immersive, fully inclusive strategy development that is supposed to bring back the diaspora. We love the whole concept around developing the country as well as the continent, and the global view is what we're doing with Heritage 100. In keeping with the Global Africa Forum, we're all about harnessing the innovation and the development that we need in Africa. Heritage 100 seeks to bring in and mobilize all of the services and amenities that we expect being on a global stage. We believe we can inspire all diasporans to come home. And that's the true theme of building an investment group that will highlight and create the new Africa that we all seek. It's all about the growth, the prospects, the innovation. And that's why Heritage 100 will be the cornerstone and the beacon of all things. Golden Coast Developers, join us in realizing what Africa should and can and will be.
Career in the financial services space, he has achieved major milestones and contributions to shaping the banking landscape across Africa. If I go on, we will not finish. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the Group Managing Director, United Bank for Africa, UBA, Oliver Alauba. Please, let's welcome him with a round of applause. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me. I would like to first of all appreciate Global Africa Forum, the Africa Prosperity Network, and African American Institute for inviting me to be part of this conversation. I would like to say that we gather here today not just to address the challenges facing Africa, but also to spark a sense of urgency, an urgency that address and drive transformation across Africa. As Mr. Tony Elumelu, CFR, a leading advocate of Afro-capitalism, says, and I quote, "Africa can only be developed by Africans, and the African private sector has the potential to lead a transformation through long-term investments," unquote. His words serve as a reminder of the responsibility that we have, both in Africa and the diaspora, to invest in our homeland future. Africa's infrastructure needs are vast and pressing. In fact, the figures are staggering. Whether in technology or even in housing, the needs are enormous. The ADB estimates that Africa faces a 100 billion annual infrastructure financing gap, while the UNDP cites a gap of 68 billion to 108 billion annually. Although these numbers may seem daunting, they represent a clear call for action. Closing the gap is critical to unlocking Africa's full potential. To do so, we must think creatively, act innovatively, and form strategic partnerships to mobilize the necessary investments to meet these essential needs. You have to give me some time. I'm having some issues here. Yeah. Just a few minutes, please.
Hello everyone, I'm Neil Oku, the CEO of Golden Coast Developers, and we're glad to be a part of this year's Global Africa Forum. We believe the cornerstone of building Africa is to ensure that the investment base and the practical ideas turn into tangible projects. We're calling on all global Africans to come home, invest, and let's harness the opportunity.
Infrastructure needs are vast as person, as I mentioned. For us in UBA, we are committed and positioned ourselves as a leading Pan-African financial institution with our presence in 24 countries, 20 of them in Africa. With our 75 years of experience as a financial institution, UBA remains committed to Africa's development. As Africa's global bank, UBA has been involved in several infrastructure projects in Africa, and they've had positive impact on the lives of millions of people in the continent. For example, in Tanzania, UBA provided project support for the 2,115 megawatt Ilole Dam on the Rufiji River. The landmark initiative will significantly accelerate Tanzania's economic development, providing a catalyst for growth by expanding energy capacity and fostering industrial development. UBA has also played a crucial role in financing many infrastructure projects across Africa, helping to connect areas to improve the lives of countless individuals. Additionally, UBA has supported port expansion projects in which will enhance